Welcome back once again to the Diplomatic Lounge. This is our March 2026 episode, and we're in the middle of the war of Israel and the United States against Iran. Now, it's often said that one of the first victims of war is the truth. Rightly so, because war always comes with propaganda and lies. But there is another victim that I want to talk about today, that is history. History and the knowledge of history is also a war victim. We have to look back at the deep roots of the entire situation in the Middle East to understand why this war is happening and maybe how it may play out. Why is the entire Middle East such a patchwork of states and entities? Why is it, and pardon my French, such a fucked up part of the world when it's supposed to be, at least partly, a holy land? The region being such a patchwork is a result of the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire after the First World War. Now, whatever you may think about the Ottoman Empire and how it ended, it has been the only political construct that has been able, and for centuries, to keep a lid on ethnic, religious, and cultural diversities in this part of the world. Now, in 1918, the victors of the First World War realized a long-standing pipe dream of all the European powers. Britain and France wanted to do away with the Ottoman Empire because it stood in the middle of the route to their Asian colonies. And Russia, as always, look at today, wanted an exit to the Mediterranean. Now, the same victors in 1918 also did away with the empire of Central and Eastern Europe, that was Austria-Hungary. And there it resulted also in the creation of a number of new states with artificial borders, without taking into account the creation of ethnic minorities all over the place. And that became a very important factor for the future after 1918, because we have to remember that ethnic minorities were the root cause for the Second World War. Hitler wanted to reunite all the ethnic Germans before he set out to conquer the world, as he thought he would. Now, the same situation that happened in Central Eastern Europe would almost fatally happen also in the Middle East, be it with a little delay. Also there, you had these artificial borders with minorities and unresolved conflicts between groups all over the place. And this situation is still ongoing, and it's still as deadly as it ever was. But there are two exceptions to the artificial states in that part of the world: Egypt and, yes, Iran, the ancient Persia. Now, Egypt has such deep and ancient roots that its culture and its legacy have long entered our common heritage. But the same is true, maybe to a somewhat lesser extent, but still for Persia, which has contributed a lot to universal culture over the centuries of its long existence. And my feeling is that even if you try to bomb such countries to rubble, you cannot kill their spirit. Somehow that will survive and bounce back. If you look at Egypt and Iran as the two exceptions to the artificial states in the Middle East, the question comes up what to think about Israel. Well, it is in most respects an implant and a transplant, but nobody can deny, of course, that the Jewish people have also very ancient roots in that part of the world. However unreliable biblical scripture is as history taking literally, that's not the case. But the problem with Israel is that it was not just founded on a historical legitimacy, but also invoking a moral one. It was the outcome of the Holocaust. Now, that claim to occupy the moral high ground, unfortunately, has been destroyed once and for all by the present-day wars. It's a tragical circumstance because the burden of that new situation, where Israel can no longer claim moral superiority, will fall or may fall on the worldwide Jewish diaspora. the diaspora will have to deal with this situation where reactions against Zionism gone rogue may end in blind and blatant anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, we see that happening a little bit already. Does that make Israel a pariah? No, I don't think so. Absolutely not. Israel has become like any other state. And if you look at the history of the world, you see that most modern-day states came together somehow in blood, sweat, and tears and land grabs. Look at the United States. What happened to the original inhabitants, and how did Mexico lose half of its territory? When it comes to Iran, I think maybe you can bomb it to rubble, but I'm sure that a country that ancient and with such deep roots in history will bounce back. Because you can destroy buildings, but you cannot destroy a culture that is also immaterial. And maybe the only little hope at the end of the tunnel in this atrocious war is that the countries that are bombed into smithereens, and that includes also the Palestinians, those peoples have long memories, and they will bounce back because they have existed and they've been there in many ways, much longer than the present-day politicians with their limited shelf life and their wrong-headed decisions. Thank you, and see you again next time.